All right. I gotta talk to you about something. CD Projekt Red. Cyberpunk 2077.
The marketing of this game was perfect. CD Projekt Red positioned themselves as the anti-AAA studio with hidden messages saying, "Our goal is that you truly enjoy Cyberpunk 2077 and not regret the pre-order." Sadly, they did the mistake that every big gaming company where you can buy stocks from make, that they release too early because the shareholders wanted their investment back. I can only quote the dude from Nintendo: "A delayed game is eventually good, but then too early is always shit." It's wide but not deep. If the game would be a lake you wanna swim in, you quickly realize after the first jump in and your consequent concussion that the lake looks kilometers wide but is sadly and hurtfully only knee deep. There are many tried and true RPG systems in the game. Obviously shooting and stabbing, but also some kind of magic system in the form of hacking the cyberware implants in the brains of the enemy. It has many aspects and reminds me of good games like Borderlands 2 with the shooting, or the open world inner city feel like Grand Theft Auto, or the in-game storytelling from Fallout New Vegas. But sadly, it's a jack of all trades, master of none. I personally really looked forward to Cyberpunk, but I waited until the first reviews came out. And that was a good thing, as the game at release was unplayable on every device unless you had a monster of a gaming PC, and even then you would have had issues. The game as of August 22 is still very resource intensive. I had to upgrade my graphics card from a GTX 970 to a GTX 1080 to play and record at the same time, and even now the frame rate of the recording is not close to 60 frames per second. Although the game itself runs smoothly with the occasional bug or hiccup, which is to be expected from an open world game, as there are millions of things interacting all at the same time all over the map. So yeah, you can't judge an open world game too harshly for being a little bit buggy. It's just very complicated on the technical side of things. I waited for a Steam sale and paid 30 euros. I have to say that all in all, I think it was worth it. It's a fun game with a mechanical mix of Borderlands, Skyrim, Fallout that tries to be a GTA sometimes, and there lies the main problem in my opinion. We've all seen these games and they all do their job better than Cyberpunk does, and you can't help but compare it and feel a little bit disappointed about all this unused potential. When you start the game, you have to create your character, V, the protagonist. Sadly, you don't see yourself in cutscenes, and so it's really not much use unless you specifically go to a mirror and make grimaces. Although I did not find a reason to do that besides, let me try this once. A weird thing I needed to talk about is that you can choose your dick size. Okay, so after you chose your gigacock, because let's be honest here, there's a reason NASA had to rename the size of the condoms for the astronauts to large, gigantic and humongous, and we're all guilty here, dudes. You will be disappointed, however, that there is never a scene or a minigame where your cybernetically enhanced micro wiener will be of use or even shown. It's actually weird that there are so many sexual references in the game, in advertisements in-game, and just the overall feel. And even a side quest where you have to bring a dude to the doctor because his black market penis cybernetically malfunctioned. And yet, And yet I could only find a single active prostitute in all of Night City. Well, okay, two, if you count the male prostitute and the one female prostitute I found. The sex scenes you may encounter while romancing one of the storyline NPCs are not very different. I mean, yes, of course, I know they didn't want to make a porno game, but in my opinion, if your game plays in this over-sexualized inner city world, why not use it more and be more unique and outstanding? Speaking of not outstanding, the weapon system, it has a touch of Borderlands, where theoretically there is so much customization that you won't find the same gun twice. Sadly, while playing you realize there are only a few types of weapons that actually differ from one another. There are shotguns, assault rifles, sniper rifles, pistols, the usual bunch. Then there are tech weapons, which are weapons you can charge up for more damage, and also smart weapons with basically a built-in aimbot. This sounds like a big variety, but they all have the same problem. And that is that you will find so many weapons and they get better so often every 30 minutes of gameplay that you really never use all your best weapons in your inventory. The same problem Witcher 3 already had. In my opinion, you loot too many weapons. Maybe it's just my personal pet peeve, but I don't understand how the same shotgun shooting the same ammunition does triple the damage just because you found it 2 hours later in the game. The same thing with armor. You'll often find that your legendary professional plate carrier you found 3 hours ago will now be replaced by a torn t-shirt that has double the amount of armor points. Items and the customization, and especially the customization, is lacking very much. I mean, this is a game about a Wild West cyberpunk city where people casually shoot each other and body modifications are the norm, and you can't even put a bigger magazine on your favorite rifle. It just feels out of place. And again, I'm reminded that even the shitty weapon or armor customization from Fallout 4 would really fit better in this world. But I have to say the sound design is very good. The weapons sound realistic, and also not only the weapons, also the background noises are really a good fit overall, as you have kind of old modem sounds in the menu or while hacking. Let's talk about the magic system. You can hack the brains of enemies with a magic-like system where you use mana. Yeah, here it's called RAM, but it's basically the same. To deal damage or cripple or let the enemies fight for you. And it has a targeting system that reminds me of VATS from Fallout 3 and New Vegas. It was a nice touch, and although there are only a few spells and I generally don't play mages in RPGs, this game made it unique enough that I solved nearly every, let's call it, disagreement in my second playthrough with hacking. The storyline is not one of the strengths of this game. Your friendship with Jackie, that's the guy from the trailer, is summarized at the start of the game with an, I call it a friendship trailer, where they want you to relate to Jackie after a 2-minute short film about the things you've gone through together. It didn't work. In my opinion, if I should be invested in a character, it has to progress naturally and slower and with much more actual active working together with this NPC. So I really didn't care about this very dramatic moment where Jackie gets shot and dies, and now the game wants me to feel something and wants me to decide where the body should be transported. I mean, I don't give a In my first playthrough I rushed the main story, and most of the time I didn't know why am I doing these things and who is that I am doing it for. I have to say though that I have the same problem in every RPG with side quests and main quests. I do one main quest after another just to be disappointed that the game ends so fast. Hence why I played it a second time and did try to do every side quest before the game needed me to do one main quest to progress further. All in all, the quests overwhelm you from the second you leave the tutorial and you get your telephone. The thing is constantly ringing, at least right after you exit the tutorial, and you'll get like 10 messages from 10 different people. You have no idea who they are, and I really had trouble keeping up with the names and what they want from me and what their purpose and place in this world was. To the point that it quickly devolved in a I do quests because it says so. I am peon.
Something you're doing? Work, work.
There is no pacing to the different characters. They just throw so many NPCs in your face, and again you get the feeling that this game needed to be much longer, but management didn't give the developers the needed time to let the story progress naturally. The graphics, the city looks good even if you're not playing on Ultra. The NPCs also look good until you make the mistake and rewatch one of the trailers where they show you Johnny Silverhand.
Wake the f up, samurai. We have a city to burn.
You're funny. Can't believe this Seuss, the one who's gonna help us.
So all in all, the graphics are okay for an open world game. I didn't know what to expect and wasn't disappointed. The gore is okay, but for the most part it's pretty casual, except for a few scenes in the main game when they introduce you to the Maelstrom, who are body modder fanatics that played too much RimWorld and now literally harvest civilians and prostitutes for their cyber tech. But in my opinion, for a game that's in a dystopian world, it's really not black metal enough. Driving. A good open world game needs a good transportation system. As this game plays in the inner city most of the time, there needed to be a good car driving system. Again, I understand that a good driving system is a game in itself, but for me the minimum requirement of okay, this physics makes sense has to be fulfilled, and Cyberpunk does not fit the criteria. Car driving is barely scraping these requirements, and motorcycle driving is just plain horrendous and immersion breaking. Getting out of a car or off a motorcycle at high speed gives you this very weird animation where the vehicle keeps going as if you just let go of the gas, but you yourself get off or out of the vehicle as if it were standing. I mean, come on dudes. GTA solved this problem years ago, either with an jump out animation or the vehicle brakes to a standstill before the player gets out. This here just looks weird and feels weird at worst, or at best has this Indian action movie vibe to it. Looting. The loot system is pretty straightforward and was taken directly from Witcher 3. Go and press the loot button on everything and everyone until you can't carry no more. The distance to loot is too short, and sometimes you have to aim very carefully to find the sweet spot where you can mindlessly loot, at least on the PC. Especially looting robots and mechas is a pain in the ass, where sometimes you try to loot for minutes because it dropped a legendary orange item you really would like to see, only to give up after minutes of fiddling around and trying to hump the RoboCorps. There are consumables like eating and drinking, and there is nothing special here. I accumulated at least 4 of Elon's Cybertrucks full of food and drink and rarely used any of it. Maybe that's because I didn't play on the hardest difficulty, but I honestly just didn't want to interrupt the gameplay loop every 3 minutes to open the menu and eat something when I could just use the Medipack with a single button. World building. The city is beautifully handmade. There are many side quests and events all over the world. Most of it is voiced, although conversations between NPCs often look unfinished as they talk, and after they don't have any voice lines left, they just keep standing there awkwardly. Maybe it's underhanded cultural commentary from the developers that in the future social skills are so much deteriorated that people just stand there awkwardly after they finish a talk to then go online on their brain cyber deck to scroll social media until they have a new thing they could talk about. Or maybe it's just unfinished. You have to decide that one yourself. You'll also find Shards. No, not that one, you disgusting Kongs. Containing text-based conversations. Some of these shards need to be decrypted. That was a nice touch for you to read them. I personally don't care for text dump based storytelling, but I know other people who are into it, so I won't criticize it. What I'm going to criticize is that the decrypting or hacking minigame is always the same. There is not much variety in it, and so that after a few hours of gameplay it feels like the well-known lockpicking from Skyrim. It's a good hacking minigame, but used too often to be the only one. $30, I wouldn't pay more. The marketing was so misleading. They released way too early. What can you say? I don't understand. Why would you shoot your knees like that willingly? I mean, they kneecap themselves. I don't understand. I really don't get it. If the product isn't finished, why would you release it to the public? It's just so damaging to the company. It's all in all, it's just so much lost potential. My recommendation would be for you to wait for the DLC. This should release soon, maybe the next year or two, who knows. I mean, the Witcher, the DLCs for the Witcher series, for Witcher 3 were very, very good. So big, like their own game, and maybe you can only hope. Yeah, wait and see, wait for the DLC.